Hi, I'm Becca with Family Abounds, and today I thought I would share with you the birth stories of our 6 children. So we're just getting excited and getting ready for our 7th baby to be born just in a few weeks here. And so I'm trying to get my mind in gear for her birth and just kind of get excited about it. There's been so much going on that I just haven't really given it a lot of thought, and I know it'll happen. It's just going to happen, but I do like to think about it, and it helps me just to kind of get psyched up for it. So I'm going to start with our firstborn, our son Joshua. He is 9.5 years old now, and when Claude and I had him, we were 25. And we had no family around. We had some support from some church friends, but we pretty much had no clue what we were doing, and we had no clue how to get ready. At the time, we were really set actually on having an unassisted home birth. And while I won't go into all of my thoughts about that, but at the time we thought, you know what, the whole doctor world or whatever, that whole system, we're not super thrilled about. We think they do unnecessary things. We don't really want to go that route. And so I actually never had an appointment with him in the early part of the pregnancy. In fact, I didn't even take a pregnancy test. I knew that I was pregnant. There were very obvious signs. But when we were just over halfway through the pregnancy, through various things that happened, we opted to go see an obstetrician. And this was both a good and a bad decision. It was good. I think it was good to actually have some prenatal care. That's good. I definitely advocate prenatal care. I think we could have done a better job selecting a practitioner, but we didn't know anything at the time. So we thought, if you're going to see somebody, you're going to see a doctor. We lived in the New York metropolitan area. The area that we lived in did not have, didn't have a birth center that was nearby. There weren't really any home birth midwives. So we just went to the nearby hospital. We found a doctor that practiced there, and we started at appointments. So when we came to the point of realizing I was in labor, I was actually 36 weeks and 6 days the day I started having contractions. So I was at work. I worked at Starbucks at the time, and I was writing down on a little piece of pastry paper that I grabbed all the, the timing of the contractions. So they were very regular, and they started probably, I don't know, probably 9 in the morning or so. I would have been at work a couple of hours by then. And they didn't ever stop. So later that evening, we were at church. I was like, oh, I'm having contractions. I guess we'll see what's going on. Into the night, I was having contractions, and being a really inexperienced first-time mom, I was timing everything. I was kind of deciding, oh, how much does this hurt, whatever. And sometime in the middle of the night, we figured this must really be labor, and so we actually went into the hospital. They checked me in triage. I don't remember how far I was. Probably I was only like 1 centimeter, and I was effacing, but not really a lot of progress. So the nurse sent us home, and I just continued on with the morning. I don't remember the timing. It would have been late morning. We actually went back because the contractions started getting stronger. And so we went in, and I had read a lot of books about natural childbirth. And because I didn't have any experience, I had never seen anybody in labor. I had never really talked to anyone except to hear the horror stories from people about how awful it was and how painful. So I went into it thinking, if I want to do this naturally, I'm going to be able to do it. And if I think it's not going to be painful, it's not going to be painful. Well, I was really wrong. It was a lot of pain, and I ended up opting for an epidural. And then later in the evening, probably, I don't know, it must have been around 5 in the evening or 5:30 in the evening, they checked me and they said, oh, are fully dilated, you can start pushing. I pushed for an hour and 10 minutes. I was totally exhausted. I couldn't feel anything. I had no idea how you're supposed to push. The nurse we had was very good, but she was kind of quiet, and the doctor we had was awful. She hardly talked to me or to Claude. Excuse me. She called me Veronica the whole time until the very end when the nurse finally said something. And I thought I maybe should have said something, but I was not, really in a state to say anything. We got to just the very end, and she took some scissors out. She gave me an episiotomy. She did not say what she was doing. She did not ask if I wanted it. She did not give me any reason. She said nothing. She cut me. Joshua was born. He was totally fine. He was 6 pounds, 3 ounces. I think he was about 19 inches long, healthy. He was great. The nurse afterwards said the episiotomy was totally unnecessary. Everything was stretching fine. It's just that she wanted to be out sooner. Anyway, it wasn't a very great birth experience. Joshua ended up having jaundice. I was trying to nurse, but again, no support, no knowledge. I think I had seen one person nursing in my whole life when I was very small. I must have been only 4. All the babies I knew were bottle fed. I had no clue. And Joshua also was very sleepy. He didn't wake up. He hardly ate in the first 24 hours. The nurses were super stressed out, and they were stressing me out. And anyway, to make a long story short, we ended up bottle feeding him. And I think that was a fine choice. I was disappointed at the time. Now I look back and I think it doesn't really matter. So that was Joshua's birth. The next year, just a year later, I started going to labor again with our second child, Hannah. One big change that we made for that pregnancy was that I found a new practitioner. We found a midwife, the only midwife in the area who delivered in the hospital. And I just made it clear to her that I really wanted a natural birth. I didn't get to do it the first time. It was kind of all very self-centered at that time. And I'll probably get into a little bit of how my views have changed on birth and all that. But just to say, we had an awesome midwife. She was fantastic. So when I went into labor with Hannah, this is October 1st, it was a beautiful day. I just remember it was so gorgeous. It was like, the temperature was probably like around 60. The sky was blue. It was so, so beautiful. So I started having contractions in the morning, just like I did with Joshua, kind of mid-morning. I took Joshua out for a walk, so just keep in mind he is about 15 months old or 14 months old at this time. So I took him for a walk like I usually did, and I kind of went through the day, went through the evening, went through the night as well, and it was just early labor. I got to about 6 a.m., and I thought, okay, these are starting to get really, really strong. So I called my midwife, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm sitting." And she said, "Get up and walk." So I got up and I paced our apartment. We had a small 1-bedroom apartment. I walked from the bedroom, I circled around into the living room, and I went back, and I just did that for about an hour or 2 maybe. And things really started to pick up. I reached this point where I thought, we have to go now. We have to go to the hospital now. We had some friends who were willing to watch Joshua, but I thought we don't have time for them to come here. So Claude actually took Joshua out. He had to walk 10 minutes to our car, and he said, "I'll come back for you." But I thought, I am just gonna go down the stairs. So in between contractions, I was moaning through them. They were really, really intense. I went down the stairs. I was trying to go really fast so that I wouldn't be moaning in a very echoey stairway in an apartment building. I got out to the sidewalk, and I was leaning on a railing. I'm moaning through contractions, and in typical New York fashion, people are walking by and they're looking at me out of the corner of their eye, and no one stopped, no one asked. I'm a laboring mother, obviously in full-blown labor here, and no one's with me, and they didn't stop, which I laughed at the time. I thought it was really funny. So Claude comes around, he we get in, we drive 10 minutes to the hospital, we pull it to the curb, and people are trying to get me in a wheelchair. I'm like, I can't sit down. I don't want to sit down. So I got up to the labor and delivery floor, and they forced me into a wheelchair. They wheeled me the last, a couple hundred feet into the delivery room. My midwife was like running down the hallway. There are tons of people in the room, and they're like literally like taking my clothes off, putting on a hospital gown. They're setting up the baby bassinet, and I was like, wow, this feels like a movie. This is how it happens in the movies. And I was afraid I was only going to be a few centimeters dilated, and I was in all this pain. So my midwife is like, well, let me check you. But before she checked me, my water broke, and then I was fully dilated, and Hannah was born 10 minutes later. And it was really an exhilarating experience. I thought, wow, if I could do that, I could do anything. She was awesome at nursing. Nursing was really easy to establish with her. She never had any jaundice issues. Like everything that was challenging with our first experience was like almost a breeze with Hannah. So I was really glad for that experience. And when it came 2 years later, when in September, so almost exactly 2 years later, I was going into labor again, I felt really confident in that experience. So now moving into our third child, Abigail. With Abby, I actually made it to her due date. So I did forget to say, Hannah was born 9 days before her due date. So I had one born our first 3 weeks before his due date, exactly 37 weeks. Then our second was born 9 days before her due date. And so I was fully expecting to have a baby in the first half of September when we were expecting our third child, Abigail. And she just does things differently than everybody else. She still does. And we love her for it. So I got to her due date, September 17th was her due date, and no baby. And so I went shopping at Costco with our 2 kids, and I remember really distinctly thinking, this is kind of crazy. It's my due date, and I'm walking around the store with 2 kids and a cartload of food. But anyway, I ended up started having contractions that night. I think I was saying that with Abby's delivery, she didn't drop into the pelvis, and I needed to get in a good position in delivery, like ready to deliver her, so that she could clear not only the pelvis but the pubic bone, and that's the key thing. That's kind of what has come up in these past labors, and something I'm thinking about ahead of time for this upcoming birth. So my midwife was trying to get me in different positions, and I was not being very cooperative. I was at that point where I was like, this is the most pain I've ever had, and I'm just kind of done. So she said, okay, fine, you have to go flat on your back. So this is what I had always read. The least optimal position for pushing out a baby is flat on your back. However, it worked, because what it did was it tilted my pelvis enough that the inlet was big enough she could get her head in. It opened up, like around my pubic bone, so she was able to get underneath. And she definitely was the hardest baby to push out because her head was much bigger than the others, and she was almost 2 full pounds bigger than our first, who was 6 pounds 3 ounces, and she was 1 pound bigger than our second, who was 7 pounds and like maybe 1 ounce or something. So for me, she was a big baby. And anyway, but once we got her past the pubic bone, she was born. She was very healthy. Again, nursing was easy. And my views about birth, though, were starting to change at this point. So I had gone into having children I was very idealistic, and I was not very realistic because I had no experience. So when I was able to finally have a fully natural delivery with Hannah, it was very empowering. It was very empowering, which was exciting. But I started after Abby's birth to realize that birth is very humbling. There's just no way around it. Your body is going through something that is huge. It is doing this huge work, and it is beyond what I can do in my own strength. And I started realizing how humbling of an experience it is. So not only is it incredibly hard, and it is really painful. I know some people will say they don't feel pain, they just feel pressure. That is great, but that's not my experience. And I find that, the only way to get through is to rely on God's strength. So it's humbling in that way. And then it is also humbling because, and I'm not really pessimistic about this, and I'm not worried or anything, but honestly, there's so many things that can go wrong in labor and delivery. And I don't go into it scared, and I don't go into it like totally freaked out, and I'm not paranoid or anything, but I just am aware that a lot of things can happen, a lot of things can go wrong. And it's really humbling because it is something that is outside of your control. As much as people want to, promote birth plans and your ideals and what you want, and it's your body and your birth and all that stuff, I'm not really against any of that. In fact, I'm for some of it. But I think that it is a mistake to make birth into something that's only about the mother. Because let's face it, it is huge for moms, right? We are giving of our very own body to grow and birth a baby. And that is really huge. And so moms need to be well taken care of. And I think they need a lot of support, really good support when they're pregnant, especially in labor delivery and especially postpartum. I am all for that. I'm pro mother and pro mother care. But when it comes down to it, the birth is about that baby. It is not about me as a mother and me and getting my own way and having the birth that I want. Those can be perks. That can be great. It is really exhilarating. It really can be. There are parts about birth that I really don't look forward to, but there's nothing like that baby coming out and being put on your chest. There is nothing like it in the world. So I am very pro mother in this, but that birth is about that child. It's their birthday. It's not my birthday, right? It's not my Labor Day or whatever. It is about the baby, and then it's about your family. So I think that this kind of all these thoughts started falling into place after Abby was born. I didn't have any complications with her. I had no real birth complications at all. And I've had no, at that point, no pregnancy complications. So I could kind of think, oh, well, everything always turns out well, but it doesn't always, and I'm not going to take it for granted. So I'll stop there with that little rabbit trail, and I'll move on.